Picture this. You're standing on the sun-bleached, creaking oak of a 16th century galleon, stranded thousands of miles from land. All around you endless, suffocating blue. Millions of gallons of water stretch out to the horizon, blindingly bright, reflecting a relentless equatorial sun that bakes the deck until the pitch between the planks begins to melt. And yet every single man standing beside you is slowly, agonizingly dying of thirst. Your lips are cracked open, bleeding. Your tongue feels twice its normal size, thick and sandpaper dry in your throat. You look down at your hands and realize you're holding a cup of raw ocean water. You're so desperate you can almost convince yourself to drink it. But you know the grim truth: swallow that liquid, and the salt will tear your internal organs apart within hours, plunging you into violent, feverish agony. Then, something unbelievable happens. An ancient navigator steps into the center of the deck. He doesn't look down at the ocean. He doesn't pray for rain. Instead, he looks straight up into the clear, empty blue sky. Guided by basic physics, a greasy sheepskin, and a few ocean sponges, he does the impossible. He begins pulling gallons of pure, cool, life-saving drinking water straight out of thin air. This isn't an exaggeration, and it certainly isn't magic. It is the brilliant, forgotten survival science that kept humanity's greatest explorers alive when everything else was trying to kill them. If you want to understand how a crew could wring drinking water out of empty air, you first have to grasp the quiet horror of life aboard an Age of Discovery ship. When a galleon pulled away from port, its most fragile cargo wasn't its black powder, its cannonballs, or its precious trade spices. It was fresh water. Every single drop, meant to keep 60 men alive, was locked away deep in the dark, damp belly of the hull, sealed inside massive wooden casks. But wooden barrels on the open ocean are a ticking biological bomb. Within 14 to 21 days, that stagnant, warm water begins to rot. It turns thick, slimy, and green with algae. In the tropical heat, bacteria multiply exponentially. Ships transformed overnight into floating incubators for dysentery, typhoid, and cholera. Sailors who drank from these rotting barrels suffered violent chills, vomiting, and catastrophic fluid loss, ironically accelerating the exact dehydration they were trying so desperately to escape. When the barrel water turned into toxic slop, men turned their eyes to the vast expanse surrounding them. Why couldn't they just drink the sea? The answer is a brutal reality of human biology. Ocean water sits at a salt concentration of roughly 3.5%. Your kidneys, incredible as they are, can only produce urine that is significantly less salty than seawater. When you drink ocean water to quench your thirst, your body is forced to flush out that massive salt overload by pulling pure water directly from your own organs, blood cells, and tissues. Swallowing a cup of seawater forces your kidneys to excrete more water than you actually swallowed in the first place. It is a biological death loop known as osmotic collapse. What follows is pure nightmare material, excruciating kidney cramps, violent muscle spasms, vivid hallucinations, and total mental degradation. Sailors who broke down and drank from the ocean often went so out of their minds that officers had to bind them to the mast with heavy rope just to stop them from flinging themselves into the waves. This nightmare reached its absolute peak in an ocean region known as the Doldrums. Right along the equator, opposing atmospheric trade winds collide and completely collapse, creating vast, eerie zones of dead calm. Sailing ships would get trapped there for weeks on end, sitting motionless on a glassy, mirror-like ocean without even a whisper of wind to fill their canvas. Under that blinding tropical glare, temperatures inside the wooden holds surged past 100 degrees. Rain was a distant memory. The barrel water was gone. Just as a crew faced total breakdown and mutiny, a seasoned navigator would invoke a 2,000-year-old secret first set down by Aristotle, a survival trick that relied on greasy wool, cold nights, and the invisible ocean hiding in the atmosphere. Here is the wild scientific truth: even during the most brutal, rainless heat wave, the sky above the ocean is loaded with invisible water. The marine boundary layer maintains a relative humidity between 80 and 95%. Millions of gallons of gaseous fresh water hover directly over the ship's rigging every single second. The real challenge was figuring out how to turn that invisible gas back into a cold, drinkable liquid without electrical refrigeration, without ice, and without modern technology. Ancient mariners exploited a fundamental principle of thermodynamics dew point radiation cooling. At night, dark, dense materials on a ship shed their heat rapidly, radiating infrared energy out into the clear night air. Heavy wooden decks, coarse canvas sails, and thick wool fleeces cool down far faster than the surrounding humid air. When the temperature of these surfaces dips below the atmospheric dew point, the invisible gas floating around them undergoes a rapid phase change. It condenses directly into liquid water droplets. Long before modern physics could name this process, Mediterranean sailors were putting it to work. Before sunset, they would take unwashed, oily sheepskins and hang them high up in the ship's rigging. Wool is naturally hygroscopic, and its rough, greasy fibers possess a massive surface area that literally grabs hold of atmospheric moisture. Throughout the long, damp ocean night, microscopic dewdrops clung to the greasy wool fibers. By 3 o'clock in the morning, those heavy fleeces were dripping wet with pure condensation. Before the morning sun could hit the rigging and evaporate the entire harvest, sailors scrambled up the ropes, squeezed the heavy fleeces into wooden buckets, and collected liters of cold, clear, life-saving water. When a crisis hit and the whole crew was at risk, captains adapted this system on a massive scale using their canvas sails. They would unrig giant sails, stretch them out horizontally over the deck, and weigh down the centers with iron cannonballs to form massive sloping funnels. As night dew accumulated across hundreds of square feet of canvas, pure fresh water trickled slowly down into collection casks positioned below. Yet, dew catchment had a terrifying vulnerability. On clear nights with gentle moisture, it yielded just enough to keep a crew clinging to life. But if an atmospheric drought dried up the dew, the yield dropped to zero. To survive a month-long drift without wind or dew, sailors were forced to deploy a far more dangerous tactic, running an active steam distillation fire on board a vessel built entirely out of dry timber. When passive air collection failed, mariners turned to active phase change desalination. Luckily for them, the basic chemistry of seawater has one massive structural weakness. Sodium chloride requires temperatures exceeding 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit to vaporize into gas. Pure liquid water, on the other hand, transforms into gaseous steam at a mere 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Boil ocean water, and the liquid water flashes into vapor, rising freely while leaving every single crystal of heavy salt behind at the bottom of the iron kettle. That rising steam is 100% pure freshwater vapor. The immediate challenge on a wooden sailing ship was catching that hot vapor and turning it back into liquid before it dissolved into the sky. Greek and Roman sailors engineered an amazingly effective low-tech answer-the-sponge cap system. They filled heavy iron cauldrons with ocean water and stoked controlled fires inside the ship's galley stove, the caboose. Directly over the mouth of the boiling pot, sailors suspended large, highly porous natural ocean sponges mounted on wooden frames. As dense white steam billowed upward, it slammed straight into the porous matrix of the cold sponge. The cooler sea air surrounding the sponge drew out the thermal energy, causing the steam to instantly condense back into liquid water trapped inside the sponge's fibers. Sailors worked relentless shifts straight through the night. The moment a sponge grew heavy and dripping with hot condensate, a sailor wearing thick leather gloves would swap it out, wring the fresh water into a clean cask, and slap the sponge back over the steam. A single stove operating with this sponge setup could produce up to 2 liters of pure, sterile water every hour. By the 18th century, naval inventors took this concept even further. They fitted improvised copper pipes and long leather fire hoses onto the spouts of sealed kettles. They routed these tubes through large tubs of cold ocean water kept below deck. The chilly seawater inside the tubs cooled the exterior of the copper pipe, creating a surprisingly efficient heat exchanger. As hot steam traveled down the cold pipe, it condensed rapidly, trickling steadily out the far end as pure, crystal-clear drinking water. The crew had managed to turn boiling ocean water into sterile drinking water. They had outsmarted dehydration. But as the days dragged on, sailors who drank this harvested water began complaining of severe stomach cramps, sudden nausea, and debilitating illness. An invisible, deadly trap hidden within the ocean air was quietly poisoning their hard-earned harvest. The very environment that offered them air moisture contained a subtle chemical trap that ancient sailors took centuries to fully diagnose. During the day, strong ocean winds whip microscopic droplets of sea spray through the air. This fine ocean mist settles over everything on board the ship's sails, the hemp rigging, and the hanging wool sheepskins. As the hot sun bakes the ship, the water evaporates, leaving behind an invisible razor-thin film of concentrated salt crystals, dried ocean minerals, and organic debris. When night fell and sailors hung out their wool or stretched their canvas sails to catch dew, the condensing fresh water dissolved those hidden daytime salt crusts. The water dripping into their collection buckets wasn't pure at all. It was a brackish, contaminated broth filled with redissolved ocean minerals, dried bird guano, and concentrated salt crusts. Instead of hydrating the desperate crew, this salted dew secretly accelerated their cellular dehydration and triggered violent stomach infections. Making matters worse, active steam distillation came with a terrifying logistical downside: fuel consumption. Boiling hundreds of gallons of seawater required immense amounts of dry firewood. A standard sailing ship carried only enough timber to cook basic meals for a few weeks. When stranded in the doldrums, that wood supply vanished fast. Captains were forced into a horrifying choice: stop distilling water and die of thirst, or order their men to chop up the ship's own interior bulkheads, spare yards, and wooden furniture to feed the galley fire. In several documented historical voyages, frantic crews burned their own interior cabins and wooden fittings, right down to the structural hull timbers, just to keep their primitive steam stills burning for a few more precious days. Surviving a multi-month drought on the open ocean was never about finding one silver bullet. It required a complete, masterfully executed survival ecosystem that combined passive atmospheric collection, mechanical filtration, and thermal physics. To defeat the salt crust trap, experienced mariners instituted strict washing routines. Before using sails or wool fleeces for night dew collection, they used precious stores of clean water or fresh rain when available to thoroughly scrub the fabrics, stripping away the dried daytime salt deposits. In cold, fog-drenched regions like the North Atlantic, Viking mariners perfected the art of fog harvesting. Fog isn't gaseous vapor, it's suspended droplets of liquid water. The Vikings lined their thick hemp rigging with rough, heavy ropes. As dense Atlantic fog drifted across the ship, microscopic water droplets slammed into the rough hemp fibers, combining into larger drops that ran down the lines into wooden collection troughs mounted on the deck. To maintain a daily drinking baseline without burning through their firewood, ships relied heavily on low-alcohol small beer, containing just 1 to 2% alcohol by volume. During the brewing process back on land, the water was thoroughly boiled and sterilized, while natural hops acted as a powerful antimicrobial preservative. Small beer didn't rot in the barrel like plain water. It provided the safe daily hydration baseline, while night dew harvesting and emergency sponge distillation provided the vital surplus needed to beat extreme ocean droughts. By recognizing that air, steam, and dew were simply different forms of the same precious element, ancient mariners turned their wooden ships into self-sustaining atmospheric water factories. When we look back at the golden age of discovery, history books tend to focus on dramatic naval battles, legendary storms, and dramatic shipwrecks. But historical records tell a far darker, quieter story. Far more sailors lost their lives to dehydration and waterborne diseases contracted from rotten wooden barrels than to cannonballs, reefs, or combat combined. On the open ocean, the line between survival and total tragedy was measured in mere drops of clean water. The next time you step outside on a humid night, take a second to look up at the sky. You are walking beneath an invisible floating ocean. Centuries before the invention of electric desalinators, reverse osmosis filters, or nuclear submarines, ancient mariners looked into that same empty air and saw their only way home. Armed with nothing more than keen observation, basic thermodynamics, and unyielding grit, they achieved the impossible, pulling life itself straight out of thin air.